Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. Back in 2022, I was working at a tutoring center in Seattle, in Mercer Island in Washington, just outside of Seattle. We had just lifted the mask mandate early 2022. Yeah, it's kind of late for because it's Seattle, and it was an exciting time for the kids, right? Now, the kids usually don't like to have to wear a mask, right? And I ran into a little bit of difficulty. Kids started to bring all sorts of junk food into the office, and I have food allergies, especially milk products. And for lack of a better word, I would often have to social distance from the kids when they did that. And some of these kids, you got to understand, they don't want to come to tutoring. Their parents are dragging them. They're in jail as far as they're concerned for 2 hours twice a week or whatever it is, right? And so when they would see that, I would back off from them because of their food. Oh, they want to bring even more food in there to get me to back off, right? And long story short, the whole episode resulted in a lot of negative review for me from the boss. And this was in 2022. A lot of these kids really wanted to, they wish COVID would come back so they could hide out at home again. Right? No kid wants to be sentenced to 2 days of tutoring every week, right? And at the time, I was lacking in connectivity. I really needed that job, not necessarily because of the money, but because I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff going on. And so when my boss was upset at me for my boss called me in after work one day to talk to me. He says that he didn't like how I complained about how smelly the kids' food was. I never said the word smelly. I said I have allergies. I'm sorry. Would you mind being mindful with how you're eating? I didn't even tell them not to bring in the food. I told them just be mindful of it. And some of these kids, as soon as they hear that, they realize that bringing in the food was like a license to get away from their tutoring, right? A lot of kids will probably think that way. Now, look, I didn't realize it at the time. But you know what has happened between now and then? Between now and then, I now have a girlfriend. I have multiple connections to look for new career opportunities. And today, when my student brought in some crazy food, it was just matter of fact, right? I just took care of it, right? I didn't worry about losing my connection to the student, and it actually played out a whole lot better. The boss actually apologized to me for what happened today, and I really despise how we live in a society of a winner takes all, right? The more you have, the easier it is to acquire. If you have connections, it's easier to make new connections. If you have money, it's easier to make more money. I really hate it. Even though I'm benefiting from it today, I still hate it. And I'm trying to be mindful about my office mates who might not be in the same state that I am, right? Even though 3 years ago, my coworkers are not very mindful of me, right? Granted, they were going through a lot too. COVID had just, and was still going on, and some restrictions from COVID had just been relaxed, right? So hard to say, right?